Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are live. We are live. We are live on a somber Saturday. It's bittersweet. I guess we could say it's bittersweet because the Dodgers are up right now. So hopefully the bullpen holds
We're
it.
watching,
But
man. Otani, the GOAT, doing his thing.
yeah, so
Hopefully the bullpen holds up, coach. This thing has been a EKG for me also. I mean, down 3-0. We were like, here we go again. Then Otani makes it 3-3. Now, we're down 5-3, up 7-5. I mean, this thing, I mean, it's like the SC Minnesota game. I mean, the ebbs and flows were pretty crazy.
that guy's a bozo, everyone. That guy's a bozo.
Well, Kenny, you're gonna get game day. That's for sure. Coach and us
Hey,
were talking. Hey,
hey,
who's getting
man.
game day next week? That's that's done now.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's an interesting game. And a lot of people are going to say there was a flaw with Lincoln Riley. There's a flaw. When he gets the ball back and it's time for him to win the game, he always goes to passing the ball. I called it. I said, here comes 3 passes right now. And it was a time that you needed to run the ball, you didn't run it. But that's not the problem. We could talk about the drop passes. We could talk about everything and anything. But that's not who lost this game. We put a lot of faith in Deanton Lynn, and he showed up today and put together a terrible game plan. I'm not happy with that game plan. I'm not. I just don't understand how they're in 12 personnel and you're constantly running a 6-man box, or they're in 12 personnel or at one point they were in 22 and you don't have enough in the box, keeping that safety high. They're going to run the ball. Everybody's going to run the ball on us. Like Lincoln Riley made his mistake. He always makes that mistake right there in that point of the game, and he hasn't fixed it yet. But at the end of the day, this is on Deanton Lynn. Deanton Lynn, however you pronounce it today, he's Deanton because he called a Deanton game.
Or is he or coach, is he just Anton Lynn without the D?
I don't know what he is, but what he did today and what he did scheme-wise was not putting his team in the best situation possible for his team to win the game at all. He never put him in a situation. And then they finally passed the ball in cover 2, and then they let one up over the top. That's 100%. Jeff, you can't disagree. I could pull it up. We could talk X's and O's the whole time. They didn't have enough in the box. That's why they were able to run. They didn't have enough in the box. Like at the end of the day, they didn't have enough in the box, and they ran the ball down our throat, and they never put more in the box. We gave him so many attributes. They make so many adjustments at the halftime. Their first half team, this and that, all this. They did not put enough in the box. If you have 7 offensive linemen and six defensive guys in the box, they're going to run the ball down your throat. There's +1 on the offensive side consistently, and that's what happened. This is ridiculous. This was a very poor game on defense, strategy-wise. Go ahead, Jamal.
Yeah, coach. I mean, I think you said it really well. For me, there was 3 takeaways from this game. Obviously the emotions are running high. We sort of have to absorb all of that. I thought there were kind of 3 key elements to this game. One is I thought there was an incredible chess match between Lincoln Riley and PJ Fleck for the vast majority of that game. And the chess match was really centered, coach, on Minnesota's edge rush against the USC tackles. The USC tackles got destroyed in this game from an edge rush perspective. And Lincoln made the adjustment, if you recall, at the start of the second half, really running in between the tackles with Woody Marks. And I thought that was very successful. He did that on the primary drive, in the first half that got the touchdown. But that was a little bit more zone read. He went really just right in between the tackles in the second half, and I thought did an absolutely stellar job. He took the edge rush really out of the game. And then, so that was sort of element 1, the edge rush versus, running between the tackles in that chess match. Look, coach, this game was on SC's racket. I mean, up 17-10, crowd is completely dead. You have the ball. You're running between the tackles. And then I thought the game kind of changed where Woody Marks, it was about a 2nd and 4 at the Minnesota 40. And the first run after 7, 8, 10 consecutive runs where he was really getting positive yards, he got stuffed for no gain. And after that, coach, to your point, Lincoln Riley never ran the ball again. So the very next play obviously was the drop back. What happened? Again, it was that edge pressure that forced that knuckleball interception, gave Minnesota life. And then they ultimately got back in the game. So number one was kind of that edge running the game, running up the middle chess match. Number two, coach, this was an eerily similar playbook to Michigan. I mean, how similar was this game to Michigan? Darius Taylor, 25 carries, 144 yards. Brosmer, the quarterback, 169 yards passing. But, coach, get this. 90 of the 169 were screen passes to running backs. Another 50 were basically bubble screens to the wide receivers. It was on that last drive, that first throw, when they got to midfield. That was the only pass the entire game for Minnesota where the ball traveled more than 15 yards in the air. So this was a very similar situation to Michigan. And yet again, we saw a USC front seven wear down in the second half with a bigger running back. First, it was Mullings of Michigan a couple of weeks ago at 230 pounds. Darius Taylor at 215 pounds, coach, really was able to enforce his will, obviously aided by the numbers that you suggested, but a similar pattern yet again here where this defensive front wore down. I think missing Eric Gentry was very critical, but it was the same story yet again. And then third, coach, and Ryan likes to talk about this a lot on the pro side, where he talks a lot about kind of Kyle Shanahan abandoning the run, in critical moments in a game. Lincoln Riley had his Kyle Shanahan moment tonight, coach, because after that interception and the game was tied 17-17, that first drive tied 17 all. He had the intentional grounding by Miller Moss. You could have just gone back to the run. You were getting 6-7 yards easy. And then that was setting up the entire playbook. 2nd and 3, 2nd and 4. You were going out wide to Deuce, to Hudson. You could have done those inside middle bubble screens with Lemon. You could run again. But he panicked and went with the throw. And so I thought those were kind of the three key elements of the game, coach. It was this sort of chess match with PJ Fleck and Lincoln between edge and tackle. The USC defensive line wearing down again with a 215-plus pound running back, coach. This is a pattern with the Danton Lynn defense. We saw it last year at UCLA. His defense is susceptible to bigger backs. We saw it last year, and now we've seen it twice again this year. This is a pattern. This is a concern, no question about it. And then third, just, the overall abandonment, I think, of the run game by Lincoln Riley in critical moments. So really unfortunate, but give credit also, coach, to PJ Fleck. I thought he coached his tail off in terms of time management. I mean, to shorten the game and those final two possessions, he went for it, coach, earlier in the second half. He was really, you could see the mind working several steps ahead. I thought PJ Fleck coached his tail off and really deserves to be victorious tonight.
I will tell you who I'm upset with from this game. I'm upset with Yogi because he was a big fan of the Big Ten. I'm just letting you know that he gave Woody Marks no love. I'm like, God dang, Woody Marks has just as good of a game as a running back. But at the end of the day, I hear what you're saying, right? But today was the day of all days that we needed to stop, and we didn't get a stop. Like, we needed a stop, and we didn't get a stop. And
coach, frankly, to a team that was again very one-dimensional. Like, maybe they were slightly better than Michigan through the air, but they were like Brosmer was better than Orji. At least there was some semblance of a passing game. But again, one pass, coach, that was in the air beyond 15 line of scrimmage. I mean, you're playing these one-dimensional teams and losing. That's the concern. And I know there's a lot of conversation about the officials and officiating and all of that. And, I don't think the officiating had anything to do with this game tonight. I think there was calls on both sides that were questionable calls, frankly. And I'm glad they gave Minnesota that touchdown at the end because he crossed the line. That was a bad call, live. And I'm glad that they overturned it because that would have been a tough way, even for SC, to potentially win the game. He crossed the line.
Yeah. I didn't like when you text me. I was like, I don't see the officiator wasn't bad. We just played a very bad game, and it goes to the point to where we talked on a show that came out yesterday. I said, this is like Arizona State and Oregon State. They are a very tough team. If you don't take them serious, next thing you know, you're going to be on a plane and you're going to be like trying to figure out how we lost. Well, I'm going to tell you how you lost. A 6-man box. I'm also going to tell you how you lost. You stopped running the ball. Like, The problem is, like, it's easy to blame the kids. And I learned this a long time ago when I first got into coaching. I used to always blame the kids. It's easy to blame the kids. Really easy to blame the kids. But what are you doing? What are you doing to help that kid? What are you doing to make that kid? What are you doing to put that kid in the best situation possible? And I don't think nobody on that field is in a very good situation besides Woody Marks today. You know what I mean? Like, everybody's like against Miller Moss. Okay, so we take Miller Moss out and then we bring a quarterback in that's just going to run around. It's going to be the same result. The issue is the tackles.
Coach, I got to be honest with you. I really have no idea about this whole Miller Moss criticism that's going on social media. I don't know what people are watching. I don't know
get
if
it
people,
either.
Like, understand football or know football 101 or can spell football. I mean, I have no idea the logic that's sort of going into this. Miller Moss has had a phenomenal season. Miller Moss, struggled tonight because his two tackles, it was Matador blocking out there, and he had to keep stepping up into the pocket. I thought he did a phenomenal job. His two interceptions, one was he got hit. I mean, that was a knuckleball, and that was more on the line than on Miller Moss. The second one, he had to force it. I mean, it was 15 seconds left in the game. He had to score the touchdown. So, outside of that, there was maybe two balls there was maybe one ball behind Hudson. Maybe you could knock him on the intentional grounding, but there was wind on some of those balls to Hudson. A couple tip balls here. I thought he was terrific. I thought he dissected the defense beautifully. I thought before, Coach, this kind of final half quarter flurry where Minnesota seemed like they had the game on their racket. I thought it was an incredible chess match going on both sides between sort of Miller Moss and Lincoln Riley and the Minnesota defensive staff. And I thought it was just extremely well played. This was a very high caliber game from kind of a strategic chess move perspective. And I think Miller Moss has been phenomenal this year, and he will continue to be moving forward the unquestioned leader of this team. This has nothing to do with Miller Moss. This has more to do with USC needing to figure out their tackle situations on both sides. And what are they going to do with this defensive front seven in the second half of games when you're going up against run-oriented teams with bigger backs? That, to me, is the big question.
Yeah. So, how do I say this? Miller Moss, and like, man, it's crazy because, like, we had these conversations. We told people this offense is going to look different, right? You can't expect the same thing that you got from Caleb Williams. But right now, only one who's saying that Miller Moss is in a high draft pick is Mel Kiper, and Mel Kiper is never right. You know what I mean? Like, Miller Moss is going to the NFL. Miller Moss is probably one of the few pro-ready quarterbacks in the college football game right now. He feels pressure. His ball placement is very good. He's a very good quarterback. He just doesn't run the ball. That's not what a quarterback is. Like, and I blame Kyler Murray for that because Kyler Murray likes to run in circles and just throws it up. That's not what a quarterback is. Like, if we legit sit down and watch what Miller Moss does on film, he steps into the pocket when he's under pressure, right? If he steps up and then there's a defensive tackle there, what is he supposed to do? Like, he doesn't have very much time. And then that's a good question, Joey. He said, why doesn't Riley run the ball in Christmas? We were just talking about that. I don't know.
Woody Marks had a phenomenal game, Coach. Remember, our pregame, we talked, it's your guy, right? I mean, somehow it's been branded as Woody Marks is your guy, and I'm not a Woody Marks guy. I was just more a Marshawn Lloyd guy. But nevertheless, Coach, you could have Woody Marks, okay. But I said that I'm expecting this to be a Woody Marks game. And that's what we got. And that's what sort of is the stunning part about this is, Coach, this game was over. I mean, if you look at it, I mean, at the start of the fourth quarter, up 17-10 with the ball, running in between the tackles at will. And this if you recall, Coach, you remember last year that Utah game at home? There was one run where, ironically enough, Marshawn Lloyd got stuffed, and then Riley didn't have another run for 18 consecutive plays, and Utah ended up winning in the Coliseum. This felt a little bit like that. It was one run. Woody Marks got stuffed. Go back and look at the tape on 2nd and 4, and then 3rd and 5, 3rd and 4, Miller Moss throws the interception off of the edge, and no more running again. So this is, again, kind of a pattern with Lincoln Riley. He Kyle Shanahan'd it tonight. There's no other way to describe it. When the game was on the line, he panicked and didn't run the ball.
I'm going to tell you where else he made a mistake. He took Quentin Joyner out of the game in the first half and never put him back in.
Yeah, well, but Joyner fumbled, right? I mean, so
Yeah,
that's
people fumble. That's a part
yeah,
of the
yeah,
game. You know what I mean? That was a legit hit. He put the helmet on the ball. He fumbled. Like it happens. You know what I mean? But he was doing a very good job too. Now think about this: if you were rotating between Joyner and Marks, think about how much more successful Marks would be
right.
instead of gassing him out. Like you're running him into the ground at this point. Like so, you need to take some relief off of him. Like at the end of the day, like people fumble the football. People throw interceptions, right? People drop balls. Like nobody's perfect. There's not one person that walks the earth that's perfect. Like it is what it is. I guess Tennessee just lost, so it's going to be very interesting tomorrow. So
Coach, I mean, I think we might have, Georgia won, so we'll see. I think it's going to be 1-3. I think Ohio State, Oregon.
oh man, they're gonna put the Dallas Cowboys of college football at number 3.
I think it's going to be 1-3, Coach, or something very close to that. I mean, because obviously the stunner of all stunners. Shout out to Vanderbilt, hey, Coach. Let's just take 20 seconds.
Hey,
here.
Broadway is popping right now. Have you ever been on Broadway in Nashville?
I mean,
Broadway
Vandy,
right
baby, come on. And a great academic institution. They're the doormat of the SEC. They're the blue blood of the SEC when it comes to academics. Let's be very clear there. But in terms of football, they are at the bottom of the pack there. Perennial loser to beat Alabama, number 1 Alabama. My God, they deserve it. What a great fan base, they were tonight and over the years. So shout out to Vandy. You see Alabama go down, you see Tennessee go down. So a lot of movement there, Coach.
Michigan went down.
Michigan went down. We called it, right?
And then somebody else went down. Oh man,
Missouri got their doors blown off. Yeah,
Missouri lost. Yeah. So
I mean, that's also the sad part here, Coach, a little bit. I know we're getting off topic, so I'll hand it back to you. But, the sad part is, look, you had Michigan kind of losing. You had Missouri losing. You had Tennessee. This was kind of an opportunity. All you had to do was kind of take care of business. You're probably looking like 9-8, potentially there. Now, this team probably falls to about 17. But the nice thing here, Coach, about this 12-team playoff now is I don't think SC's completely out of it. I mean, I think this was sort of a catastrophic loss, but and the season is kind of on life support from a playoff standpoint. But I think if they can win out, there's an opportunity here to still kind of sneak in. So I think that's going to be really important. I mean, look, we won't get ahead of ourselves, but that Penn State game next week is just even bigger because we're seeing it, right, Coach? Michigan with the second loss. Michigan's not going to beat Ohio State this year. Michigan's not going to beat Oregon this year. Michigan might not beat Indiana this year. This is an 8-4, 7-5 team that may or may not be ranked at the end of the season. We don't really know how good LSU is either. So, SC's now sitting at 3-2, and you got to wonder about the resume. Even at 3-2, what are these wins? What are these losses? Because, Michigan may be unranked, and sadly here, this was Minnesota's first Power 5 win of the season, Coach. Okay, they came in at 2-3, and so this is a bad loss. No way to slice it. PJ Fleck's a hell of a coach. I think Minnesota is the best 2-3 team in America, but on paper, this is a bad loss. So no more margin for error for SC. They're gonna have to win out if they want the playoff. One more loss, and we're gonna be done.
You're more optimistic than me. I don't think we're going to get in. Was this team supposed to be a national championship contender, or is this team still very young, a year or 2 years away? So I'm gonna address that. The problem with saying being a year away is that you're always going to be a year away. You know what I mean? Like next year, you'd be like, we're only 1 year away. Like the who's a good example of switch sports? The Padres are always 1 year away.
Yeah,
they're always a year away. But this team was supposed to be a playoff team, not so much a national championship contender. Is that safe to say? Like,
I think so, Coach.
They were at least supposed to make the playoffs.
I think I had them at 9-3 in the regular season, and I said this was either going to be kind of a bubble team one way or the other. This team was either just going to get into the playoff or just be left out. But I think the expectation this year was, a top 12, top 14 team to sort of set up for the future. But again, we can't get carried away in the future. And Brian S., it's a great question because let's take a step back. And there's still so much to play for this season. But Gentry, Cobb, Mascarenas Arnold, Clifton, Meyer, Muhammad, Arnold, Jalen Smith, Covington, all seniors. So when you talk about, is this team sort of a year away? I mean, that whole defense is going to be rebuilt next year from a personnel standpoint, from a transfer portal perspective. Woody Marks, is a senior. And so, we can talk about kind of being 1 year away, but, there's a lot of work that's going to need to be done moving forward. Obviously, we've done well in recruiting, but we lose a ton as well. So it's not like it's one of these additive situations. That's why it's really important to take every advantage that you can of the season that you're in. But long story short, we thought this was going to be a fringe playoff team, either just in or just out.
And that's what they're showing. But the most important thing that they are showing, and I'm not trying to be a moral victor here, but the most important thing that they are showing is that they're not the same team as last year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a little fight. There's a little grit to them. Like, this is a different team that we're seeing than last year. And that the product that you put on the field is the most important thing. I will say this. Shout out to Mekhi Lemon.
Yes.
Yeah. Shout out to Mekhi Lemon. Like, he's going to find a role. Like, there's so many things that they're still finding roles. You know what I mean? Like, they're still
Coach,
roles.
Your guy, let me give you a shout out, Coach. I mean, that's your guy. It's Marks and Lemon are your guys, and I thought Mekhi Lemon was terrific today. I mean, that that little option route, down at the down in the red zone there, how he was able to maintain his balance, and sort of pirouetting twice and finding a way to a first down was absolutely terrific. And then that inside bubble screen play, even on that last drive, I mean, really had the whole stadium nervous. Lemon is doing a phenomenal job. I think Deuce is finding his role and confidence, and he's really thriving here, Coach, really in that red zone. He's kind of the red zone specialist. He'll get a ball occasionally here and there. He had a really nice cross or two on that last drive and a couple other plays, but he's kind of Miller's, red zone guy. You sort of know it.
You remember real quick before you remember when I said once Deuce and Miller Moss find their timing, they're going to be unstoppable.
They're going to be unstoppable.
They're starting to find their timing.
You nailed it. And then the two guys who I was a little bit disappointed in tonight, Coach. One was Jacoby Lane. I was hoping that he would sort of build off of the Wisconsin game, the 10 for 105 and the 2 touchdowns, and travel and be like, listen, I'm wide receiver 1. I'm going to travel. I thought he got sort of outplayed. Even I thought the corners were sort of beating him to his spots. He wasn't coming back to the ball as much. He wasn't as aggressive. He was kind of old Jacoby Lane pre-Wisconsin, a little bit timid, was all there. And then, Coach, I'm sure we'll get into it over the course of the week. But again, Zach Branch, I mean, what is kind of going on here? This is now, I mean, Coach, this may be a hot take. This may not be. Is Zach Branch the most overrated player in America?
How do we put it?
I mean, considering what his number was in college football live, considering he's a jump man NIL spot. I mean, I hate to say it, but
I'm trying not to talk bad about the kid because
sure.
There are kids, so I'm trying to put it politically correct. But I think it is time. We're getting to a point to where we're going to have to phase Zach Branch out of the offense. And I think it's coming to a point to where if Zach Branch enters the portal, I think we will be okay. That's the best way I could say it. But
I mean, he's a phenomenal athlete. He's a phenomenal kid. He's a phenomenal representative of USC. We're thrilled to have him in the Trojan family. And so I'm by no means, and I'm with you, Coach. We can go after Lynn. We can go after Lincoln. Those are grown men. You don't go after the kids for sure. Yeah. I'm just saying that considering how much status was sort of granted, the delta between kind of the hype and the status to what the actual is that
very
the greatest delta of any player in the country? Right?
That delta is huge. And we're kind of in the same profession. That throws our whole project off. We make no profit on the project. That's definitely a miss. I want to jump into this question real quick because this is actually a good question. Coach, do you believe Riley can be a national championship coach with this questionable play calling and poor clock management? All right. I talked about this too, and you could jump in on this too, Jamal. But I think this is a learning period for Lincoln Riley, and this is a perfect time to be in a learning period for Lincoln Riley because I think Lincoln Riley is not used to having a defense, and he legit has a defense, so he's making mistakes relying too much on the defense. And I mentioned this, there's going to come a day when we're going to need the offense, right? and that day came today, and he was not there. You know what I mean? And so Lincoln Riley is learning too, right? I think he does have the potential to be a national championship. I think he put together a good coaching staff to help him, and I think they're covering his blind spots to make him better. But I think right now he's not there yet, but he will get there eventually. What do you think, Jamal?
Joey, it's a great question, and Coach, it's a great response. First of all, Lincoln Riley is the quarterback guru, right? I mean, there's no sort of question about that. Let's sort of reemphasize his strengths. I don't think it can be overstated that 4 of the 32 starting NFL quarterbacks are Lincoln Riley disciples. 12.5% of the starting quarterbacks in the National Football League have come from the Lincoln Riley tutelage, the Lincoln Riley Academy for Quarterbacks. QBU, if you will, LRU, if you will. So he's one of one from a quarterback coaching perspective. Now, if we sort of zoom it broader and say, how does he manage the entire offense? How does he manage defense, special teams, recruiting, NIL, the trenches, all of that holistically? I think to your point, Coach, he's learning. There's no doubt. I think we've talked about this over the years. I think he inherited a phenomenal situation at Oklahoma. Bob Stoops kind of set him up for success there with the 3 consecutive playoffs. And to me, I think it's a learning journey. I've always maintained that we can have a report card on Lincoln Riley at the end of the 2025 season. Because to me, in this day and age of NIL, of transfer portal, if you cannot legitimately turn a team into a national title contender in 4 years, you are either not at an elite program, you're either not an elite coach, or both. So that is my answer. And the short of it is it's TBD. And I think report card season is end of the 2025 year for Lincoln Riley.
Yeah. And obviously a lot of people saying learning. What does he have to learn? I mean, he's used to scoring more points than the other teams, right? He's used to that. And he's not scoring. He's not in the outscoring game anymore. He's in the, I'm going to let my defense hold. That's something brand new for him. Like, there's a learning process for everybody, even us. We get put in a new situation. You're a new parent. You're learning how to become a parent, totally. Right? You know what I mean? There's a learning process for everybody. We get a new phone. Everybody who has an iPhone, the iPhone just updated. We're all trying to learn up this new iPhone update. We get a new car. We're trying to learn what the new gadgets are in the car. There's a lot of things that we learn every year, and I think I'm not trying to be empathetic. Don't mistake that, right? But I'm still happy where we are. I'm still happy where we are because I think the product is still pretty good. But I think we get to a point to where he's just supposed to know. Like, these guys are just supposed to know, and that's never the case because, I mean, who knew that the defense would be like this, right? They only gave up what? They gave up today 24 points. They haven't given up over 30 points the whole year. We're not losing games 50-40. And I know that's a fan's game, but that's not what we are anymore.
Yeah, you know, Coach, I mean, I think to your point and to the questions, I mean, what the learning is, I think it's game management, Coach, to your point. Because when you're winning it, like at Oklahoma, he was kind of winning every game 50-45, or 55-50. And, you remember that game with Baker and Mahomes, that he was in. I mean, Mahomes had 734 yards passing in that game and lost. I mean, like, he's coming from that world where he feels like he's got to score every time, and you're playing for the turnover, or you're playing for the missed 2-point conversion, or you're playing for, a penalty where you can sort of manufacture a stop or a couple of field goals. So he's always thinking score, score, score. And sometimes he doesn't take game management into account where he says, look, it's actually better for me to take a longer period of time to score. Or this may be a situation where, hey, 3rd and 8, maybe I run the ball. Maybe punting isn't the worst thing in the world because my defense is doing a good job. We'll pin him deep. I'll get the ball back. So I think he's sort of wiring himself a little bit differently. Who's excellent at that we saw tonight was PJ Fleck. I mean, he's almost sort of the master at sort of the game management. So he is learning. But the one thing I'll say, Coach, and I know you get annoyed with me when I say it, this is a $10 million a year coach. Okay, so
Jamal, look,
there's only so much time you can learn, right? And so again, this comes down to by the end of next year, if we're still having learning conversation, if Salute to Troy is still Khan Academy, we got a problem.
Yeah, look at that one. I can learn that. He said, "Give me 1,000." That's a good one, and that's what they're all saying. They're saying he's making $100 million.
This is $100 million coach. This is a $10 million a year coach. So
Yeah,
look, you got to hold that accountability, okay, coach. And for those who say, well, it's not my money. Well, it's easy to say when it's not your money, right? It's like I don't care about the money. You have to care about the money because in corporate America, in entertainment, in law, whatever industry, that type of salary commands significant results. So I think there's a delicate balance here where you have to sort of be realistic in your expectations. And I think that's why, by the end of next year, if this team is not sort of a perennial contender, we have a problem that we're overpaying for this guy.
and the one thing we want to avoid, and I always say this, we want to avoid this on the field at halftime.
Yep,
And
exactly.
if people don't even know what this is this is all the guys who got the check to get rid of Jimbo Fisher. They were
It's the dreaded vote of confidence, right? That you
Yeah.
get in pro sports, from your athletic director or your GM.
So let me ask you this question. This is and this just popped in my head right now. What does this do for our NIL? Do you think do you think the NIL goes to the point like, all right, we need to get all in and we need to get the guys to win it, or are they starting to back off like, I'm not getting the ROI that I thought I was going to get?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that this one game, coach, is gonna swing the pendulum on like NIL strategy moving forward. I think that would be an overreaction. I think the NIL is headed in a tremendous direction. I think we are sort of where we are. We're a top 12, 10, 15, however you want, between 10 and 15 NIL program. I don't think we'll ever get to the place where we're like top 5 the way like Oregon is or Ohio State is, where it's just crazy. But I think we found a really nice place that I think our boosters, our alums are happy with moving forward. And now let's see if that's enough. I think now the question becomes, coach, how does this team respond on the field? You have arguably the biggest game of the year next week against Penn State, and now you're coming off of this loss. How do you respond? Because there was a way to say, Michigan, we sort of just let that one go. So much of the narrative in that game was about the second half comeback, and so much of the narrative was also kind of around the officiating. So in a way, it was a loss, but it didn't kind of feel like a loss. And so you still had sort of this aura about you that, you could go in there and sort of be in any situation. Now, tonight feels more like they just got beat. There wasn't some fluke play. They just got beat, they got kind of out executed and out physicaled in the second half. And now this is a second consecutive game now, coach, on the road that they've lost, in the fourth quarter with the lead, and then also had the chance to kind of either tie it or win it at the end, couldn't do it. So where is this team's aura? Where is Miller Moss's psyche moving forward, getting into Penn State? I want to see how this team responds because, coach, one more loss and you and I and Ryan are going to be having a lot of fun conversations, but it's not going to be about meaningful football. With one more loss, we're going to be talking about a lot of other things, but the next meaningful game for USC is going to be next September with one more loss. So how does this team kind of step up now and respond? And coach, I think toughness is going to be questioned this week, fairly or unfairly. They wilted in both of their losses in the fourth quarter. And coach, if you recall, 5 games, 3-2, 2-0 at home, 1-0 on a neutral site, 0-2 on the road. So there's questions. Can this team win on the road? Can they win in the second half of games when it's tough and ugly? And where is this team's psyche moving forward? And I think now, again, coach, we went from sort of flying under the radar a little bit, the LSU game, all the hype. We were in a way, coach, we were almost this year's version. You're gonna kill me. You always say like, I'm gonna kill you. Now this one is you're gonna kill me on this one. I feel like we were this year's Colorado in September. If you recall last year, 2020, from a darling standpoint, coach, from a media darling perspective, 2023's media darling in September was Colorado. 2024's media darling in September was USC. Now we kind of first week of October, we take a step back. I think we're going to be kind of flying under the radar again. We're going to be an underdog at home next week against Penn State. How does this team now respond?
So you brought up a good point. And I mentioned this too. Somebody just asked. Oh no, wrong one. They said, could traveling be an issue? Some say the team looked flat even coming out of the tunnel. It is an issue. It's a terrible issue. And my brother's in here too. He's a duck, but he's done this too. When you travel across the country, you leave on Thursday. You have your walkthrough in that next state. You have your walkthrough in that next state on Friday. You need to be there for a full day. Like this is different. You know what I mean? I've never been to Minnesota. I don't know what Minnesota's like. You know what I'm saying? Like this is different, and I just don't like the way he travels. And from a sports physiological aspect, they're not rested enough. If you really think about it and when you really look at it, they leave on Friday. They're 2 hours ahead. So let's say they left at 6 o'clock in the morning. They get there, they do a walkthrough, and they're moving all day Friday from traveling. That's like all of us getting on a plane, traveling 2 hours and meetings all day. By the time we get to our hotel, we're done and we need a day to rest. Same thing with those kids. Like they need a day, like that you get there Thursday night, right? Even if you get there at 10, at least you're there, and then you have the whole day to rest. You have time to do stuff, and like it just takes a little bit off your body. I don't like to leave it on Friday. They can afford to leave on Thursday. Whoever told them this, it's really bad, and I hate every part about it. Um, and I think that has a lot to do with it. I think their travel has a lot to do with how they play on the road. And I wish I would have known this last year, but they probably leave at like 4 o'clock to go play Arizona on a Friday with no time. So I think they travel. Their travel is awful. They do not travel very well at all.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, Coach, and I think it's one that all of these teams from the West Coast. I think it's going to be fascinating to see how they travel over the course of the season and what adjustments are going to be made. And I think that's going to be a really nice conversation to have in the offseason. How did USC travel? How did Oregon? How did Washington? How did UCLA
There's
travel
my
for these Big
backup.
Ten road games?
There's my backup.
And kind of understand it a little bit more with some more data points.
Yeah, there's my backup. See, that's how we did when we played Michigan, Tennessee, and Purdue. You leave on Thursday. You have to do it that way. But the only thing is, like, he played for the Dallas Cowboys in college football, so they never achieved the ultimate goal. They're living off of uniforms, but neither here nor there. Uh, man, it's kind of hard to figure out where we go from here, right? Because, like I said, I don't think this is the kids' fault. This is a big test. Oh, they left Friday. That's why they didn't. That's why they suck. Um, this is when we were there. With Coach Kerr, we left on Thursday. This is a big test for me. For me, this is a big test for Lincoln Riley and and Danson Lynn. Like huge test. This is a big test for these dudes. And unfortunately, your test is now the midterm, right? We're at the what? We're going into week 7 out of 12. We were at the halfway point for this game. We're past the halfway point. This is the midterm. What are you going to do? How are you going to make it work? And what are you going to do to get better? And they have a long way to go coaching wise. So they have a long way to go coaching wise, and I think they need to fix it. And if they don't fix it, yeah, I'm sorry to wield it through, but we're going to turn it into the Bruin Bible. You know what I mean? Like we're just gonna have people in here just upset and just blasting us, and like there's nothing we could do. So this is not a good idea, though. I'll tell you why that's not a good idea. But
No,
yeah.
I mean, look, I think there's some overreactioning going on right now. We have to sort of let the emotion calm a bit. I think again, it's going to come down to how this team responds. Look, there's clearly something there with physical running teams with a running back that's over 215 pounds. That is now 4 times in the last 2 years a Danton Lynn defense has sort of wilted in the second half. Twice at USC, twice at UCLA. So there is something there schematically. And Coach, I'm sure we'll get into more of the details of that this week. But, so there's a fix schematically. And whether it's numbers in the box, whether it's the type of zone shell you're running, whether it's disguise, what needs to kind of change from a schematic tactical perspective, number one. Number two, I think Lincoln needs to take the good from this game. And there was a lot of good, notably kind of the balance that he found, both running and passing the ball, and particularly finding the ability to sort of run in between the tackles. So hopefully he can take the good from this game moving forward and adjust. And then I think moving forward for that Penn State game, and we'll sort of get into it, I think it's going to be a very the matchup, coach, that's going to be very intriguing there, where I think coaching is really going to matter, is the Penn State wide receivers against the USC secondary. Because the USC secondary, the only job easier than the USC secondaries in 2024 is like being mayor of Beverly Hills, or like the mayor of Malibu, like those are like the cushiest jobs you can have. Being a member of the USC secondary is like the cushiest job in town these last couple of weeks. When you go up against Michigan, who doesn't throw, Wisconsin barely threw, and there was a bust in the first half, and then Minnesota did not throw the ball down the field at all. So how does that sort of untested group go up against a Penn State wide receiving group that has a lot of talent, but also has not really proven itself in any sort of big game? So how Riley sort of identifies that as the key matchup and how he sort of adjusts strategically, I think will also be telling. So I think it's not about, as the saying goes, that you get knocked down. It's how you not only get up, but how you get up and how you move forward. Because look, at the end of the day, if USC runs the table from here on out and gets into the playoff, this is going to be one distant memory. So it's going to be about the response now moving forward.
Yeah, it's 100% the response. And so I don't know where to go from here. Does Penn State run the ball?
They do. But they got smaller backs. I mean, the back's a little bit smaller. But it's a two-headed. They got two good backs, Singleton and Allen, Katron Allen.
But really they could also throw the ball. So this is going to be
I mean, in theory. Like, everyone's sort of hyping them up that they can throw the ball. We haven't seen it. Didn't see it today against UCLA. They got guys, but they haven't really been able to put it together. They got a really nice tight end, Warren, who's almost like a Tim Tebow gadget player. He's like a Taysom Hill, Tim Tebow kind of guy. They line him up in the backfield. They put him in Wildcats sometimes. They do all kinds of things with him. And so, but they got talent on the outside, but they just haven't been consistent with it. So it's going to be, if Penn State kind of win, whoever's going to win that outside matchup, coach, to me is going to ultimately win that game. But that's for future shows here, coach. That's for Monday and Thursday.
I was just curious because we were just so light in the box today.
Yeah,
that just blew my mind. How
light it's so surprising because Minnesota didn't throw the ball. I mean, down the
ball
field
at all, and we stayed in a too high shell. You know what I mean? And then we get comments like we should hire Coach Lynn. Well, Coach Lynn stayed in a too high shell, and they're in 12 personnel. So check this out: USC had 6 in the box. Minnesota had 7 in the box, and that's why they were able to run the ball on us because they were +1 the whole game. So Coach Lynn has some stuff he needs to work on too. Those are just the things that I'm able to see that people can't see. Like if I would have ran the ball all day too, and they were running outside zone, and he was cutting the ball back so smooth. It's crazy. Like
who he reminds me of a little bit, coach. He's smaller, so
Le'Veon Bell.
A little bit Le'Veon Bell. He actually reminds me of Henry. The way he's so upright with the ball.
Oh, yeah,
like that upright style. Is that Eric Dickerson Henry style where he's so straight up, so smooth with it. I mean, it was a really smooth runner, Taylor.
Yeah. So that's I was looking at that the whole game, and I'm like, bro, just put one more in the box and you could stop the run. Like, get out of the too high shell. These dudes aren't faster than our corners. These dudes aren't better than our corners. You don't need any safety over the help over the top. Just play one high. Like, they have 2 tight ends in the game. Automatically, right there, bam, you should be good. And then at one point, they started putting one more in the box, and they had a hat for a hat. The SC never got to +1 in the box. They never had 8 in the box at any time, and it never put them in a situation to win. So Coach Lynn has a lot to work on. You know what I mean? At this point, I always want to go up there and be like, you guys are never +1. You always want to use the safety to be your +1. You know what I mean? Like, stop using your safety. Just put them in there and be the +1 right from the get-go and have that one extra man just in case for the cutback. That's why the cutback was so successful, because there's nobody there for cutback because there's a hat for a hat, or there were always one less in the box. So
and they had a little bit too much respect for the Minnesota receivers.
They did.
Where you got to prove it, right? I mean, get burned. Lose a touchdown drive through the air and then adjust, but you got to kind of make them earn the respect, right? To your point of too high.
And I just want to let you know, I hate cover 2. I am
Yeah.
anti cover two, and I know they're doing a lot of cover two in the NFL now, and that's why the running numbers are going up because you can never have enough in the box if you play too high safety.
Right.
Like, come on! Like, I am anti. Even though Coach Carroll was a big cover two guy,
It was a
I,
different game back then, Coach.
it
It was a
was a
different game
different
back
game.
then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was. But man, we just won't.
And
We
also, it's kind
just
of
aren't in the right
easier to
place.
play cover two when you got a guy like Taylor Mays, So it's
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
Kevin Ellison too.
and
Don't forget
I
Kevin
mean,
Ellison. Yeah.
like that, you make up a lot of ground with those guys. You can do cover two with those guys. So
A lot of people are upset about the pass call on 3rd and 4. Why didn't he run it?
the pass on 3rd and 4 when
Yeah.
Moss got intercepted. Yeah,
Yep.
I mean I mean they were running at will, but Riley has a tendency. Go back and look at kind of the history with USC these last couple of years. You can go back even to the Oklahoma days. When he gets one run play that doesn't go his way, he gets spooked, and then he sort of goes away from it for a couple of series, and he almost has to sort of condition his mind to go back. And that's exactly what happened. If you go back and look 2nd and 4, I think Woody Marks was averaging between 6 and 7 yards a carry the entire second half. I think at one point he was 16 carries for 113 yards, Coach. He was at 7 yards a clip, for the entire game. And on 2nd and 4, we again, sort of went up the middle, and the interior linemen did a good job. They won their blocks, stuffed them for no gain, and then Lincoln got spooked and threw every play till the end of the game from that point on.
Yeah, I would have tried to run. I will say this real quick, and then we'll get out of here on this. I think Lincoln Riley plays a little bit too conservative at times. He never gets aggressive. He never sets himself up to go for it on 4th down. I know he went on it for 4th down last week, but if you really look at how he plays, he gets really conservative. If he's in any 3rd and medium or like 3rd and 3, he doesn't really go for it on 4th down. Like it's not his thing, and he's like, that's the thing. Like he needs to start being like, all right, we're going to go for it. You have the defense now that can stop it. So you could overcome those things in today, but he gets really, really conservative.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's easy to sort of dissect him to this degree after a loss, and I think we can sort of argue it any number of ways. And I'm not saying you're wrong, Coach, in any way. I think the bigger issue is whether he's conservative or aggressive. One person's aggressive as another person's conservative, and vice versa. It's a little bit of a judgment call there. But I think the key is he sort of abandons the run, the moment adversity strikes. I think that's a little bit of an offensive character flaw of his that we've seen over the years. So that's something that you can get away with in the Big 12. That's something you can get away with in the Pac-12. That's not something you can get away with in the Big 10.
Yeah, there's some good questions coming in now. That's the wrong one. They keep moving on me. Was our play calling too predictable, Coach? I don't think so. If that's the case, Minnesota's play calling was very predictable. We knew what they were going to do, right? They were going to run outside zone and set up the cutback. So I don't think so. I mean, we ran what they ran. I don't think that's too predictable.
No, I thought he exploited the matchup of running up the middle. I just think we got beat off the edge a few too many times.
Question, Coach, how can we get pressure on the QB? The defense can only hold up so long without pressure. So I think this is a little bit of fallacy. People are putting pressure with sacks, and they're not adding up hurries and actual QB pressures, right?
Totally.
And I think we do get pressure when we do blitz. And there are times when we have the quarterback under duress at times. So I think there are those types of questions. But we have to be able to get there. We have to be able to get there with 4, and we don't have the ability to get there with 4 right now. We have to be able to get that ability. So that's where I go from there. Let me see if there's any more good questions in here. Nope, I don't see anything else. You got anything else, man? Before
no, Coach. Tough loss. There'll be brighter days ahead. But now, this was a catastrophic loss to USC season. Now the playoff is on life support. The margin for error is gone. They're going to have to win out if they want to be able to get in. And not only win out, they're going to need some help in the sense that LSU is going to have to play well over the rest of the season. Penn State's going to have to play well the rest of the season. Notre Dame's going to have to play well the rest of the season to be able to show that those games and those potential wins meant something. So Margin for error is gone. We had it. Unfortunately, we sort of let it go. A lot of momentum about this team moving forward as a second half team. A lot of swag, a lot of aura. Let's see how they respond. Brighter days ahead. But as always, as a Trojan family, we continue to fight on.
Yeah, constantly fight on. We're not. Oh, let me get rid of that. We're not in a bad place, guys. Remember that. We're not in a bad place. Compare the product that was on the field last year to the product that's on the field this year. Like, we're not in a bad place. We're okay. I know you guys want wins. And it's unfortunate from last year's season, right? Last year's season is like, and you guys start to have that feeling like, oh, here we go again. We're about to go down this road again. But in reality, you know what I mean? We escaped Penn State. We kind of have a smooth sailing road going into the Notre Dame game. Do we play Washington? I'm not sure. I thought we played Washington.
Yeah, we do.
We play Washington, so that's going to be a little tougher than we thought. Dead Fish got them playing pretty well, but we don't know what Notre Dame is. Like, Notre Dame's not even on Channel 4 anymore.
Yeah. Well, I think
like,
coaches
they better get in the conference fast.
First things first, got to see what happens with Penn State. Because if that one goes the other way, you and I are gonna, we can turn this into a fishing show, or we can turn it into a cooking show, or a comedy show, whatever you like over the next couple of weeks. Dealer's choice, Coach. Because we're not going to be talking about meaningful football if this team doesn't beat Penn State next week.
What do you guys do on the other side of town right now?
Oh, you come and join us, Coach. I mean, me and Will, we got a whole thing going. We got skits. We're going to invite Sebastian Maniscalco. Seinfeld's going to be joining us in a couple weeks. Go. I mean, it's great times over there.
Hey, I can't wait to have the conversation with Will when I tell him, see, I told you about Chip. Chip was not a good idea. But definitely, man, it's all right. We gotta get up again. We gotta get up and brush ourselves off again. The learning pains hurt. But hopefully we're learning. Hopefully we get better. And we got to move on. We got the Nittany Lions coming into the Coliseum. This is for sure going to be one of those big games. We're playing on CBS. This is another pageantry game. This is going to be all about the pageantry. These are one of the two most decorated blue bloods in college football. So definitely. Funny
story, Coach. We'll leave you with this. I got a good buddy, doctor friend of mine down here. What a shocker, Indian American who's a doctor. I got he went to undergrad Penn State and then went to medical school elsewhere. So we got a bunch of friends that we're gonna try and go for the Penn State SC game together. A bunch of Penn State folks, SC folks. He bought tickets today, Coach, like this afternoon, and I messaged him and I said, if you only waited a couple of hours, the prices would have dropped pretty significantly. So
you think so? I thought that game sold out.
A little bit.
Yeah, so definitely, man. So yeah, man, we'll keep growing. Enjoy your Sunday.
Likewise.
We'll get together on Monday.
We'll see you on Monday, Coach.
We'll get a show out Tuesday. Hey, wipe it off. We all failed before in life. We all had hard lessons. Let's get through it, guys. I appreciate you guys for watching. You guys know how to go. Live free. Fight on.